Mr. Bramble is here to take his place and explain the minutes and claims to us.
Yes.
We got February 7th, special meeting, the one you had for the jail, and February 6th. No, wait, February 6th was the special meeting. February 7th was the regular meeting minutes to be approved.
Mr. Auditor, would it be appropriate to approve both at the same time, or should they be
I think
individually?
you can.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve both sets of minutes.
Second.
All by aye.
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 Then I've got the claims for February 4th through 10th for $3,551,890.49.
Commissioners review and questions or anything? Take your time.
Move to approve.
Second.
All by aye?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. No more business with the auditor at this time. We'll move on to Mr. Ryan Wickens. Let's give an update with rural transportation. Is that correct? Okay, Ryan didn't show up this morning. All right. So the next item on the agenda is the clerk's office. Clerk has a request.
Good morning. The clerk's office has sent you guys a request to reference the voter registration office falling underneath the clerk's umbrella and making that part of the clerk's office. Sent you guys a letter on February 8th explaining why we want to do this. It basically comes down to providing better quality elections. Working with voter registration hand in hand and having them under our umbrella would help improve the election process greatly. There seems to be a lot of miscommunication as it is now, and I want to clear that up, and anything we can do to make the elections better, let's do that. I'd researched this a little bit. I believe there's only 6 other counties that don't have the clerk under their umbrella. And those would be Madison, Allen, LaPorte, Marion, St. Joseph, and Vandenberg. And the letter explains exactly where we're going with this. I want to make it very clear we're not looking to fire anybody. We're not looking to do any partisan politics. Fair and a better election process is all we want to do.
Okay, questions of Mr. Newman?
Mike, I'd like to give Mr. Etling the opportunity to speak if he has anything to say about it.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Good morning.
Morning.
Mr. Modisett had addressed this to me just last Thursday, and then Clerk Newman also reached out to me, and that was really the first time that had been raised as a question. I know that Mr. Lawson is on his way here, and I think he could answer specific. Okay, Mr. Lawson could speak with regard to the inner workings of that particular office, but I was not aware of any particular problems with regard to the manner in which elections. Obviously, that's a tremendous responsibility for the clerk's office, for any clerk's office for that matter, but as the registration office, voter registration office has been constituted since I've been the chair, I think that would be a question, is the origin of the setup of that pursuant to the statute in question. If there's going to be a change, of course, it would appear that would require unanimous vote, but it also would be, there'd be exceptions to even the ability to change that if the county has established a Board of Elections and Registration, so that would exempt it from consideration. So I think that counsel for the commissioners perhaps have to research that issue, it would seem, for it to come to a vote. But I think that, once again, as it's constituted, that the chair of the Democratic Party and the chair of the Republican Party have made appointments as co-directors to that office, and it has taken it out of then the purview of an elected office holder. And with all due respect to Clerk Newman, he would be term limited to run again for office, so notwithstanding his position with regard to how he would present the makeup of that office, it would seem that that would be subject to that elected office holder, be it a Democrat or be it a Republican in the future. And I think that would change what has been historically the makeup of the voter registration office, where people have been able to come without regard for who is the clerk and be able to participate with the registration and submitting documents to register themselves or others that they're assisting in the process of registering to vote in the election. So I know that it's always a challenge to get poll workers, and I know that Mr. Lawson can speak to that. Bob, if you want to come forward. But relative to the manner in which that office is run, of course, Mr. Lawson has been the Democrat appointee and co-director of that office for a number of years. So the commissioners have questions about, of course, the manner in which that office is run and the inner workings. I don't think there's anybody better suited to answer those questions than Mr. Lawson.
Sure, are there questions?
Mr. Lawson, who do you answer to directly? If you were to take a vacation day or a sick day, who would you tell that you're doing those things with?
Well, our office help. That's the way this office was set up since since the remodel of the courthouse. I remember back in the old days, the voter registration office used to have like 10 or 12 people in it. It's been made up of a Republican director, a Democrat director, and then each party would have a part-time person. And that's our entire office. We've got a very, very tiny office. Our problem right now is we don't have a Republican director in there. Beta Long retired. Randy Gentry made an appointment, and she only lasted about 2 months. Left us and didn't say anything, and he hasn't appointed anyone yet. But I would basically let Sandy Myers, is my part-time person, I would let her know. If I'm on vacation, I always let Joe know, since I was appointed by Mr. Etling. And but that's the other thing. I haven't taken a vacation since Veda's been gone. I might take a day here or there, but she wasn't here after she had her brain surgery back in November until pretty much the May election. The way the thing is made up through the voters is the voting, anytime that the election polls are open, our office to be open. So the last 2 elections, I've worked all those hours from start to stop. So I've got a lot of comp days put aside, and once again, I can't use it because we don't have anybody else in there. But that's okay. I'm not complaining about it. I've got them. I need them. And like I said, it's not been a big problem. The only time I'll ever try to take a day off is if it's like a doctor thing over in Indianapolis or something like that. And I do have to do that on occasion. But we always try to have everything in shape before that happens.
Thank you.
So to add on to Mr. Schweitzer's question, you report to yourself when you take a day off?
Well, I'll let my part-time person know, but I mean, we keep our own, that's the way this office has always been set up. We keep our own records. I'm the one that does the payroll,
Okay.
so I just mark it on my calendar so that I know to mark it off whenever I send in on the payroll.
But your responsibility, the voter registration office responsibility is for the elections, and the clerk is responsible for them. But you don't report, most of these other counties report to the clerk, and these functions are under the
Well,
clerk's office, but our county is not. Is that correct?
ever since I've been here, we've always worked hand in hand with them.
Okay.
But as far as, as far as reporting to anyone, we try to keep a good open field so that if there's something going on that we should know about, that they'll invite us to come down. But like I said, it's all worked out very well in the past.
And
We've
you are
supported
appointed
each
by
other.
the county, not the, you are paid by the county, not by the party.
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Commissioner Morris, once again, I think that historically, and particularly when Ms. Long was working in that office, so they were each co-directors, so they would obviously communicate with regard to them both being in charge of that office and make sure there was coverage. And he's indicating that at the moment there's not an appointee, but that, by the manner in which the code's set up and then adopted by the county, there's been an appointment, a direction made by the county chair for representative that's a Democrat and one for Republican, and then they become a county employee and are paid out of the general fund, and that's the manner in which it's been addressed.
I guess, to me, this is an example of why we would want more direction. I mean, you don't have a co-director because the other party's chairman has not appointed someone, so this leaves more work to you. I think this is a prime example why we would need more oversight, in my opinion.
Well, that's assuming that there's an issue right now. Like, once again, that's suggesting that there is a problem, and I'm not aware of what that problem is, but understanding that if a Democrat is in office, then the Democrat would be the person that would handle the registration, irrespective of whether there's a Republican and a Democrat represented there, and likewise, if a Republican it would have that same potential. So the idea behind that historically was so that each party was represented in that office in more or less a nonpartisan way, that there is an appointment, but that once they're there, they're both acting in the interest of the general electorate to get people registered and to not be promoting one party or one candidate over anyone else. It's just to facilitate that office. And it's, as my observation's been running smoothly over that time because they've had that. And the incentive would be for each party to make that appointment so that could occur. And it would seem that to the extent that commissioners could likewise make that input to the respective parties, that if there's a vacancy that's existing, that Mr. Gentry in this instance could make that appointment to the co-director so that could then proceed as it has historically.
Just one more thing. I did hear something when I was first walking in about a lack of poll workers. The whole time I've been here, we've never had a lack of poll workers on the Democrat side. I've tried to give a listing of not only the ones to fill all the spots, but typically somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 50 alternate workers. So it's not that that's not getting done. The last couple of elections, they've not had someone over there, and I've tried to help out to find their people for them also. So, you know, it's just one of those things that these people only do this once or twice a year. Some of them are scared to death of the computers. Some of them are scared to death of the way, you know, they have to go through classes and things to do it. That's just the state's way of doing it now to get rid of the ones that may not know. But I really don't think there's been a serious problem as far as, at least on our side. I know there hasn't been. And like I said, we've always had some good people, and that's the thing. We get to know some of these people. We get to know what their shortcomings and where they may shine, and like to try to put them at the direction, since it is a kind of a patronage position for the parties, try to get the good people from each party where they would like to work. And that's one of those things that our office has always kind of known those people and been able to place them that way. And it's one of those things.
So, and just to your point, Mr. Moore, 3729, county chairman of the major county that has a board of registration shall each appoint one member of the board. The two appointed persons must be voters of the county. So that's the statutory authority for that. And then with regard to the question, changing the composition and put it under the purview of the clerk under 3.7 12, 5.5, it would provide that it does not apply to a county in which a Board of Elections and Registration is established. So that would seem to be the legal question that would need to be addressed, but it would provide that it would be, if it did apply, there would have to be unanimous vote, but that would be, those would arguably be the statutory control of this issue.
Yeah, I think we may have had some purview to some of that. Mr. Newman or Mr. Lawson or Mr. Adling, would you like to, just for the public, explain the composition of a poll worker type of thing? I mean, this is where the poll workers are being assigned out of voter registration. Is that correct in our county? And so
Well,
what the
typically, at least as I was described when I was put into this job, one of the things that was our job was to take care of getting the poll workers or the party chairman, because in the guidebook it says that they serve at the discretion of the party chairman. And since party chairs are typically very busy, that was passed along to voter registration to find these people. As far as once they become into this, they are part of the clerk's office as far as they are directed by them. We have no direction with them after we get them, other than if they were to call in and ask us a question, which we try to be the first link for someone calling in from one of the election polling places if they have a problem or a question that would have to do with the voter. Now, if they have a question that would have to do with mechanical or something going on one of the machines or something like that, then it needed to go to the clerk's office.
Well, I was just wanted to redo the structure of the people that work at the poll. I mean, it's a bipartisan type of a structure.
Correct.
So what you're assigned, well, that's why I want clarification. Clerks, judges,
You have an
inspector.
Inspector that's from the party that wins the most votes for the Secretary of State.
Okay.
And so in this case, we have the Republican inspector. You'll have a judge for both parties. You'll have a clerk, the poll book clerk basically for each party.
Yeah.
We've also now we've added a signature clerk so that they can sign the back of the ballot. It has to be signed by both parties. And then to even it out, we have someone that's what we call an exit clerk to make sure the ballot goes in the box and then gets them all out of the room so they're not spinning in their box. And so we have an equal number from each party.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Set up by state statute. Period. No variation. Clerk or voter registration or party chairman or anything have anything to do with that.
The only thing is if the clerk's office would see we have a polling place that's extremely busy, they have added some extras. But that's, we still, if we add one, we add two. We have to have one at each party.
So when the lights come on at 6 o'clock on election day, away we go. Everything's in place.
And truthfully, we've had very few problems with that as far as, and we'll have onesies and twosies. I'm missing.
Okay. All right.
At least we're not getting any calls that says, hey, we're not.
They don't get the calls, though. Those calls come into Election Central and to us, and then we have to redistribute assets to wherever we need them.
And where do you draw your assets?
Usually from our own office at that point. If it's 6 o'clock on Election Day, we're trying to scramble around to get people to these locations.
So you have predetermined some resources that you might draw on if somebody were ill that morning and not be able to attend a poll.
Usually that means we're pulling from our own people in-house, and we're just going to be short until the polls close that day.
Okay. So the voter registration has not given you a list of alternates?
He's given us a list, yes.
Okay.
And we've been to the point where we've exhausted the list.
Okay.
On our side of the,
People, they never work.
I know, that's what, but,
Yeah, and
So-
if they don't get called to train, then they can't work.
And that's part of this, that's why this needs to be under one person. Somebody needs to be held accountable. If these people aren't getting called, then we need to handle that.
okay, and voter registration does not handle any training.
No, we handle the
We're not
training.
supposed to.
Okay, all right.
And we
Clerk's
handle
office
that by
handles the training.
statute, and we've implemented the training programs now where they have to pass a test. They have to be competent to work at the polls. We make them achieve at least a 70% rating to go work at any of the polls during the training. And the training has become more extensive. Obviously, as technology evolves, a lot of our poll workers aren't as technology savvy as some, so it takes a little bit more time. I'd also like to address, I reached out to the Indiana Election Division in reference to the oversight of this, and I got a response back. I can share that with you guys, but I'd like to get it all to all of you at the same time. As far as statute overseeing the voter registration.
Yeah, so Brad, my one concern is what Mr. Etling just brought up.
Sure.
The shall word, and under your letter to the commissioners, under clerk supervision, there would be no more partisan influence over appointing our voter registration officials, so we'll have to have some type of clarification on that.
We had run this by the county attorney. We sent it to him for him to do research as well, and there wasn't an issue at that point. And again, this whole thing is to provide better elections.
Okay. As Mr. Lawson indicated, that used to be, was, and in times past, and it seems like some of the evolution has changed with the voter and voting within the state. And the training and the ability to adjust on election morning. And we've got a lot fewer polls. I guess I'm kind of figured this out because we have a lot fewer polls than what we used to. And we used to have a lot more people involved in these elections than what we do now, I would think, as poll workers at least. Is that correct, or is that,
Quite a bit less.
Yes.
yeah?
We had to have full numbers at each one of those polling spots. However, I worked those polls from the time I was 18, till the time I became involved here, and there would be a lot of times we would just run short during the day because just move people up for the better job. Because back then, we used to have what's called a sheriff, basically sat there and watched everything. And a lot of times we moved sheriffs on that. I mean, that was a tough situation for that many people. But, like I said, our problem right now doesn't seem to be, we can't get enough. It's just that when we get them, we turn their names in, then we're supposed to be done with it. And what happens after that, we don't know, because we don't get to tell them when to train, how to train, that sort of thing. We're supposed to time them in. And, but, we'll leave it up to someone else, make sure they get over there and get in. But if there was ever a problem, I would hope we would contact and say, we can't reach so-and-so, they've done that. And if they call and say, we're missing calls, not answered at some point, somebody will call or whatever their excuse is. But if we have that opportunity, of course, we can get them, make sure that they got them trained. But the last few elections, we did not know about it until after the fact. So past was one of probably the hardest, we kept getting calls, nobody ever contacted. Again, maybe they just didn't recognize it until they answered the message. I don't know, I can't speak for what.
I understand,
someone else is
I
doing.
understand,
But-
yeah.
But I do know that we had a sufficient number of people turned in for the work polls, and also the warrant for alternates. Also, we also had some problems, people became ill or had fallen down, hurt themselves, that sort of thing, had a fault with the alternate early on.
request from the clerk to take this action, and I think that the reason is to try to make the election run.
Correct.
Whether, whatever party that clerk might be, to make the election run in a smoother pattern.
I'd be,
Yes, certainly. I appreciate your input.
Our office is also not just there for elections. We're there for, obviously, for everyone that registers, moves. We try to keep track of the death records really close. If we know somebody's moved out of town, there's an application we can send them to get them to sign off so that we don't keep people on the polls. You know, this becomes a problem for us because you look at what our registration shows. But having universities here, people will register. They may not ever vote once they register, but they stay on that because the state keeps them there for, it just seems like 10 years, 12 years, whatever it is, until they decide they're going to start doing these, send them letters, and then eventually they can maybe get them removed from the polling list. We have to take care of all of that. That's all done on a daily basis. But we also, just like right now, we've got an election getting ready to happen. All those candidates that might need something, each party will come to us if they need something as far as materials, walking lists, and that kind of goes on all the time. There's 1 year when there's no election, and that's the year that we usually would work on very hard on getting all of our registration materials all up to date, making sure that everybody, we have a card for each voter, and that it's all up to date and that sort of thing. But otherwise, we're working all the time. And it's not just elections. We have a lot of other things that go on. And these people are told to go see their party chair, but again, the party chairman don't actually have access to all this material. And they need someone there, irregardless of who's going to be the chairman for either party. They need someone there that can kind of, I guess, for a lack of a better word, take care of, watch their back, take care of what they need. And that's what this has always been for. And, and like you say, we're kind of nonpartisan. We're there representing parties. Excuse me, a dry mouth. But, we do take care of each party. Someone comes in, we're not going to turn them away. And that's what I was working on this morning, was getting walking lists for several candidates. And so that's not just something you can just snap your fingers and get. You got to know how to get it, where to go to get it, and then work at it, get it all done.
So how would this be handled in a county that doesn't have the department set up your way? Would they get that from the
Well, most of
clerks?
the counties that I'm aware of actually have a separate office.
I mean, I don't know, it's a fair question to ask you.
But,
If you're not familiar with other counties.
yeah, the only one that I used to have a lot of access to was Clay County, because my wife worked there for 31 years. And they actually had a room, it was all in the county clerk, but they had a room, that's who handled it. But, it's a whole different operation than what we had in Baltimore County. It seems like the ones that have it are all your bigger counties, where there are a lot of people that run, and, so it's a little more time consuming.
And walking lists and things like that are provided no matter what the party is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can't turn anybody
Right.
away unless they're using it for like an advertising campaign or something like that. They
How
have,
would you know that?
you have to take their word for it. You ask them.
Yeah.
And they have to sign, there's a form that they sign that says,
Would you-
under penalty.
Okay. So you do that,
Absolutely, we have them all on file.
okay. And you wouldn't necessarily would you ask the clerk for that form, or?
Well, it's a state form
It's a state form? Okay.
by the election.
Okay.
I wanted to address something real quick. We had over 20 no-call, no-shows on Election Day, and that's becoming an issue quite often. And those are backfilled from people with our office. I'm sorry. that sounds horrible, or alternatives. We talk about the quality of the election and how we're doing things. The elections aren't the same as they were 15, 20 years ago.
I mean, not 3 years ago, we went through COVID.
Correct. And we've adapted and we've continued to have a quality election, and that's what we're trying to do here. It's better the elections, better the oversight, better the process. I think this is a positive for the county.
I think what, I guess makes sense to me is the consistent oversight that we would have there in voter registration. I mean, it's working in all counties but 7. Have you have any problems in those other counties where it's being done this way?
I'm just gonna say personally, for me, this is a board of commissioners, so, we all have our own opinion. For me personally, I would like further clarification on the shall language. I think that opens us up to a possible suit if we were to change this ordinance today and a chairman or both chairmen were not happy about it. They come before us, we have to rescind the ordinance or something like that, or rearrange it. I think Clerk Newman has some more information he can give us that he received. That, and Auditor Bramble, since this is an ordinance change, does it require unanimous vote? Or can we be a majority of the board to move this forward? I know there's certain situations, Jared, that
I'm not familiar.
It appears that, I was looking over some Indiana code just kind of as we were up here today.
it's on.
It says the county executive, and this is under, let's see, Indiana Code, 3-7-12-5.5, particularly, section 1 where it says the county in which a board of elections and registration established under Indiana Code 3-6-5.2 or Indiana Code 3-6-5.4, the county executive may adopt an order by unanimous vote of the entire membership of the county executive to abolish the board of registration and designate the circuit court clerk as the voter registration officer of the county to supervise the registration of voters of the county. It would appear that way according to this particular code.
Commissioner Schweitzer, do you have
I just think,
would you care to table this? or-
Clerk Newman, will it affect you in your upcoming election if we table it for 1 week to get further clarification?
We have to do it 60 days prior to the election, but it will not affect us for a week, no.
I mean, I don't mean to be difficult, I promise I don't. I just want to make sure that we have all of our ducks in a row, 100%. So yeah, I'll make a motion to table this until the February 21st meeting. You guys absolutely don't have to second that at all. It's just my motion.
So this will not affect the election if we table it for a week? You'll still be able to be ready?
I think it says 60 days before, and then if it is within 60 days, you have to wait till after the election in order to effectuate that. So I believe how the statute reads. Mr. Elling, I guess it is your opinion that even if this was adopted by the commissioners, that the county chairs would still appoint their respective positions? I think that would be the question, but I think, for instance, when you say there are problems in other counties, I mean, with all due respect, I doubt that there's been any intensive research into those counties, whether there's problems or not. I mean, once again, to suggest that other counties don't have problems having people show up to work polls the day of would be ludicrous to think that doesn't happen throughout the state. I'm sure it does, but that's going to be an issue whether Mr. Newman or some other clerk down the road has to align those people. And I understand the issue about accountability to do that, but it's still going to be an issue regardless of who's in charge of that. But with regard to that position, it would seem to me that moving forward, if it's an elected official, whoever that is, and once again, Mr. Newman is going to have very little impact over the course of this because he's going to be term limited. So in a year and a half, he's not going to be the clerk. But whoever that would be, even though Mr. Newman, and I have no reason to dispute what he says, doesn't wish to make any changes, but whoever the elected official would be, they're going to be able to operate that in whatever manner they deem to be appropriate. And whether that means exclusive of what the party chair would designate or not, would seem to me to be up to the control of the elected official. No different than how Mr. Bramble runs his office or how commissioners run their offices, that to the extent that they're controlled by state law on a certain topic, but what the composition that's going to be if it now comes under the purview of a elected official would seem to be up to the discretion of the elected official in many ways. But I think it's in the best interest of all the voters, of course, and all the citizens to have fair elections, needless to say, and obviously to be run efficiently, and I think those would be things that everybody agrees with, but I think that to the extent that, and of course, moving forward with regard to the composition of the Board of Registration, that there be the ability to have representation by both parties, just as that exists in the polling places, and that people then have the assurance that they do have representation by both major parties.
So you're saying that this is an assurance that state law is followed?
I'm saying that the way it's set up right now, that's clearly that it is, and I think what Mr. Modest's question is, I guess that would require further research into how those, and commissioners' question about other counties, how they operate those. I guess we'd have to do some research to know how they do, where the clerk is running those, whether they are allowing there to be bipartisan representation. And I don't know, this is Mr. Newman with his office now, how they regard to within his office now with regard to several positions, how that's done, and that's obviously his discretion on how he does that throughout his office.
But the polls, the question and the voting records are always handled bipartisan by state law, aren't they?
Yeah, with regard to the polls, sure, absolutely. But I'm
Okay.
talking about the composition of the Board of Registration. If it comes directly under the purview of the clerk.
So Chris, your thought is you want clarification on the language?
I do, yeah.
Okay. I will second Mr. Schweitzer's motion to table this till next week.
All by aye?
Aye.
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 Mr. Lawson, I thank you for your years of service. I know that voter registration has been an integral part and it would seem to me at this point in time that you're doing your part, but maybe somebody else isn't. Be that, yeah.
I can't speak for that.
Well,
Just know that I'm there. And
I think you did speak for it somewhat. You said you were trying to keep things functioning.
I mean, the issue here is
Well, you did.
we have a chairman who has not appointed somebody in the position for quite a long time. That's a problem. We need to have somebody in that position. So, you know, I just
He
want.
appointed his daughter, and she left after 2 months at lunch.
And we've got an election to run.
Correct.
then. And so we don't, and that is our job, and that's the clerk's job.
Correct.
And that's not the party chairman's job, that's not the voter registration's job. Yeah, okay.
So
Thank
Brad,
you.
Joe, Bob.
Thank you, gentlemen.
We'll reach out for further clarification and bring this back next Tuesday.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for all that information. And, this is a lesson on elections. Okay. Mr. Robbins, you have acceptance of our annual bids, please.
Good morning, Larry Robbins, Vigo County Engineer. Yesterday, we opened bids for our annual bids for asphalt, sand and gravel, and our pipe material. We did not receive a bid for liquid asphalt. We typically receive that from asphalt materials, so we will work to rebid that. There's a communication issue that we had with that company that we are working through right now. We're asking for some additional materials that we haven't asked for in the past, so they need some clarification, so we'll rebid that section. But with the other bids, we received bids from Milestone, S&G, McGuire, and E3 Bridge. In reviewing those, our asphalt, our surface actually went down $1, a little over $1 a ton, which is good news. At least it did go down. Our pipe went down as well. It went down about 50 to 60%, which is a pretty good relief because it went up about 200% last year. So it's not back to where it was, but it is at least something that we can manage. Should help with our budget this year. Sand and gravel materials are up about 5 to 7.5%, depending on which material we use. But at this time, I would request that we accept all bids from everyone who bid. The only real ones that have multiple are the sand and gravel, which is S&G and McGuire. And that just allows us to get that material from the closest place where we're working in the county, which could ultimately save us some money, so.
Make a motion to accept all bids.
Second.
All by aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
Some good news for the taxpayers perhaps, eh? Okay. Seeing no other business on our agenda, are there any comments from the public? Yes, sir. Please step up.
Yes, sir. I had two separate requests on your agenda, but both are referring to the for something left in the relief fund. I do understand that a set amount has already been established toward the Humane Society for expansion of housing animals and facilities for spade and neuter. That being said, I would like this committee to delegate a separate fund to cover the expenses of surgeries, allowing Vigo residents free services or capping a maximum of $10 to remaining balances paid out by the fund. Is that something for this board?
Well, the Terre Haute Humane Society is operated by the city of Terre Haute. We're just giving them an amount of money, so how they choose to spend that money is really delegated by them.
I know the money was for the expansion and to build a facility for the spade and neuter. I didn't know if there was any way I could request that some more money be allocated just for the surgeries of the spade and neuter to help take down the pet population.
Do you address, Terre Haute Humane Society is an independent entity, not controlled by the city or the county. Do you have any, they would set those rates. The county or the city would not set those rates.
Okay, I was thinking maybe out of the relief fund, we still
Well,
have some money.
what they, once allocated, that is, we will specify that is for building. The request that you're making would probably come under a different line item, or could be with an agreement with the government entity, with the Terre Haute Humane Society. It's not even called the Terre Haute Humane Society anymore, is it?
It was on the news the other day.
Yeah.
I guess they got some money, but I just wanted to see if
Yeah,
there
sure.
was additional money because
yeah, well,
they
what-
used to have, I'm sorry, Mr.
Yeah,
Moore.
what their guidelines are going to be, I'm not, I'm not clear on what their costs will be for county residents or city residents first. If they're even gonna accept any out of county or those kinds of things, they would set up those guidelines. We were merely going to help with their building program and not necessarily how they run their program. We contract with them for, as a county, for receiving those animals. We do not set up any guidelines necessarily for adoption or those different things. We have some animal control guidelines. They're usually pre-shelter type of thing with our animal control officer. So yeah, but we could definitely look at that. I think that's one of the reasons that the city and the county came together to address that, because they approached, I say they, Maine Shelter Pro Society. Don't get me too far skewed on that, but I want to be clear on it. But they will set up the guidelines and the requirements to run that. It has dropped in our community. There was some programs that were helping that, and this is a way that they have expressed to us that some of these things are being addressed in different communities, and it's a plan that they have to implement here locally. So we felt comfortable with that, and it's I'm positive it'll work. I'm not sure to what degree it'll work. How's that?
Yes, we used to have the spot clinic on Wabash, and it was a godsend. Now,
Absolutely.
I'm,
For good things.
I volunteer and I try to help out with, like Sally Cox from the
Yes.
Spade and Neuter League. She's been very helpful for me to, when I trap these animals and everything, to get them fixed and everything. Excellent lady, doing an excellent job. I just wish the spot would have never closed, or there's, some of these fundings are like $70, $90, and we need to control the pet population. Of course, if it's a stray, that comes out of my pocket, or if I can get Sally Cox to fund it or something. So I'm just trying to cut down the pet population, the suffering and stuff like that. If I had a few more minutes, I just wanted,
Sure.
Of course, I'm gonna talk about a treatment program, in particular, a second methadone program in Vigo County. I spoke with Indiana Senator John Ford, Representative Bruce Borders, Representative Tanya Path, and Representative Bob Heaton last Saturday. I expect further communications. We all know there's a major drug problem in this town. So if the board can do anything, any facilities, anything to help. I know they did pass House Bill 1, I believe, was for mental recently, and I think it went from the House to the Senate or vice versa. So anything we could do in this, anything the board members could do in this community to help treat these patients. I'm a POA for Mrs. Thomas here. I'm recorded right here at the recorder's office. I'm just trying to be an advocate and help these. I think if we could get some of these addicts treatments, it would open up tons of people to fill positions, jobs. I know a lot of the courts have drug programs, and I'm just asking for any assistance I could get. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you.
Okay, any other comment from public, please? Okay, elected officials, other elected officials? Comments from commissioners?
Nope.
Been busy. We have a meeting at, you want to mention that? We have a meeting at Otter Creek Wednesday night. Just discuss Marco Mill, and we have a presentation from individual running a small company that has a lot of information on that. Commissioner Schweitzer's put together a historical perspective of the dam, and I would encourage anybody that has questions to attend, and I think a lot of them will be answered at that time. So that's at what, 6 or 6 to 7:30 at Otter Creek Junior High School, Wednesday night. All right, no other items on it. I would recess.